Killer Mike joins me now. How are you?
Tom, how are you? It's good to see you.
It's nice to see you as well. Before we get going, I wanted to ask you about this. Now, I was just decided before I talked to you to have a look at the news in Atlanta, and I saw that it's similar to something that's happening in Canada right now, where there's a lot of people having conversations around whether they should be wearing masks or not. And I understand in Georgia, the governor is sort of inhibiting masks. The mayor is saying people should be wearing masks. It's similar to people refusing to wear them in Canada. Some people are insisting that you wear them. Just what are you seeing in terms of people wearing masks in Atlanta right now?
I'm seeing more people than not are wearing masks. And, older people, especially like my dad and my mom too, his wife won't let me in the kids' club. We got to do yard meetings because old people are just like, yo, I'm not dying for young people's stupidity. And masks have become something of a status symbol. So I see everything from Louis Vuitton imitation masks to Nike masks. My business is Bankhead Seafood, and the swag shop have masks. So, I'm for, whatever is going to cause for greater public safety. And our mayor is requiring masks, and our governor is saying they aren't required. He isn't encouraging you to go out without one, but he's saying they're not required. So ultimately, people are just going to do what they decide. Yeah. My wife has instructed me to wear one, so I do because I fear her more than I fear the government.
That's probably the wisest move you have. It's lovely to talk to you, and I had a grand time listening to Run the Jewels 4. I've been a fan of your music for a long time. It's coming out at a time then when we've seen the largest protest movement in really modern American history. What's it been like to release the record at a time like this?
Well, the largest in about 50, 60 years. I'd like to say that America as a country started as a form of protest. So let's always acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. If you would not have had a bunch of colonists here that was like, you know what? We don't think we should be paying taxes across the water. And we got some free labor. If that didn't happen, that form of protest and rebellion against the crown, then we would not be a country. So protesting is one of the most patriotic things you can do. And whether it was Lucy Parsons or Eugene Debs 100 years ago, or whether it was Dr. King and Andy Young and the late, great Joseph Lowery and Hosea Williams and Ralph David Abernathy, it wasn't for them 60 years ago. And even the other movements that have come after, if it wasn't for those protests, we wouldn't be here. And where we are right now, in my opinion, is everyone recognizing that we have the same masters, that the same systems that oppress Black people oppress after Black people are oppressed poor people and oppress women and oppress immigrants and oppress Asians when it's convenient and oppress every other subgroup is oppressed by this. And I think that for the first time in our nation's history, what you're seeing is a tapestry of people aligned at one time to resist the system that keeps us separate, and by keeping us separate, keeps us subservient to the state.
It feels like an opportune moment then for this record to come out.
Yeah, it is, because Elle and I represent, through our friendship and our brotherhood and our camaraderie, nothing else, no political agenda on it, no grander social agenda. Just by being friends, we represent the antithesis of the nationalistic atmosphere in our country. And we represent the possibility and the reality that progression is being made, because just looking at us as a group, you're looking at what the protests look like in the streets today versus what they looked like in times before.
Which is that LP is white from New York, from the North.
Yeah.
You being Black from the South. I mean, the Yankee, yes. the Yankee and the Brave. Yeah.
Yep, Yankee and the Brave, absolutely. And Elle being from a two-parent household, later his parents were divorced, of course, grew up in New York, amongst the skateboard scene where organized sports wasn't as coveted, dropped out of high school, went to music engineering school, became a rapper at 17. Yet we're the same age. I, though, grew up with my grandparents in a very conservative atmosphere in the South, very Christian and God-fearing, very systematic, like still, born to a teen mother. You know what I'm saying? So, we're so different on so many different things, and yet we're a month apart in terms of age, and we're just bonded by this friendship that is embedded in hip hop. And it is the potential to me of what America could be and should be.
Well, what I find interesting about that is not just that it's symbolic, but that it's counter. That it's counter to what a system would want is for you guys to be working together to be friends.
Absolutely. And it's not that it's not possible. It is possible for human beings that are of different tribes or ethnicities. Or read that book by Seth Godin too, Tribes. It's a wonderful book. It's possible that we can befriend one another, see each other as human beings, judge each other by the content of our character, form real, loving and spiritual bonds and friendships that transcend. All that's possible. You just got to get out of your house and out of your group and your particular cipher that reinforces your ego and actually be human and meet people on that level. And it's the antithesis of what the system wants, because the system works as long as people are scared and huddled in tribes. The system can be more effective at manipulating people like a dog does a sheep. Well, actually, like a human does a dog, does a sheep. So the system is represented by the human. The dog oftentimes is represented by the enforcers of law and order. And then we are by de facto the sheep.
I want to point out that this record and all of your records are funny. They're funny. They're silly. They're two buddies joking around a lot. And how do you feel that sometimes that can be, well, sometimes the protest part of the music can get a lot of attention as opposed to the other sides of it?
Well, the Jewel Runners know, because they're we have a community of supporters. I don't say fans, because fans turn off when it ain't hot no more. So when your record's not hot, the fans turn off because it's cool. But we have a community of supporters, and they get the jokes. Like, they literally will take our lyrics, put on memes, and send it. It's just funny as shit, because humor and laughter and joy are the best best counteraction to depression and evil and anxiety and all the things that are kind of waiting for you when you turn on the news or you turn on your timeline. It's important that someone reminds you that I'll shoot this poodle if you don't tell me what a goddamn money is, old lady. You know what I'm saying? Can you imagine me and LP robbing a rich aristocrat? She won't give up her safe, and all of a sudden I point a gun at the fucking poodle. You know what I mean? That is, I own a poodle. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
like,
okay,
if someone put a gun on goddamn Gigi, my wife would give them anything they want. You know what I'm saying? Take him, you can have him.
But I like what you're saying, because I think there's I think that's just the depth of what humanity really is. I was talking to Michaela Cole about this the other day. I don't know if you've seen I May Destroy You yet, the show on HBO. It's absolutely.
I have not yet. I have to. Oh, but she is. I have not seen the show, but my wife and her friends are watching it. She's stunning.
But we were talking about how, when you're talking about trauma, any kind of trauma, there's a tendency, whether it's within the media or whether it's art, to focus on the sadness of it. But there's moments of joy in everything. There's moments of levity. There's moments of humor. There's moments.
Absolutely.
When your parent is dying, you're laughing. There's moments where you laugh,
Absolutely. And my mother smiled as I rapped on there. I was my mother transitioned to another plane. I was sitting on the plane telling her to hold on. And she tried to, but she just couldn't hang. Hold on, stay strong, but she just couldn't hang. I was talking to her in her sleep, and she woke up and started smiling and laughing. And we were joking that my manager should have went and gotten her Popeye's chicken like she fucking asked. You're absolutely right. Laughter is no cure-all, but it's a goddamn good sedative to anger and depression. And there's so many things that are heaped on us unfairly. Well, I'm glad that you noticed that in the music, because Elle and I are very purposeful as we are in making sure that when we have the opportunity to say something, that we really say something and we really bring it home. One of the most brilliant lines on the whole album is at the end of Firing Squad. When we tell them, I'm the 11 to the Firing Squad, when you tell them, hey, fuck you too. So imagine you're about to die. Here, me and Elle tied to a pole. We're blindfolded, and you know who you're talking to. The 6 or 7 guys gonna kill you. Franklin, fuck you. Your feet always stank. Jackson, Franklin's stinking foot ass is fucking your fucking wife.
Yeah.
And to the Colonel, you too. So imagine that, and I don't care what happens. Even if you're about to kill me, you gotta giggle, because the Colonel's a asshole and Jackson's wife is a whore.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Lucy Parsons, that's kind of how it went down. Speaking of Lucy Parsons, her husband was hung. Yeah, and it was tough and was mean right to the end.
Oh man, yes, he was, and
Yeah.
she was a. If you've never known about this woman, for people who are out there on the other side who may not know who me and Tom are talking about, her name was Lucy Parsons, black anarchist and not beyond abolitionist, just a fiercely on the side of the worker. Go read what she had to say about rich people, and you're gonna know Tupac was mild. Fred Hampton was genteel. This woman said every louse or dirty tramp out of the gutter should pick themselves up with knives and literally kill the rich. She was not playing. And when you understood that her husband was hung, the man that she loved with all her heart and soul, you can begin to understand why such a fierceness came from her. So thank you for acknowledging her. On the day, and this is Assata Shakur's birthday. So
I didn't know.
Happy birthday to Assata, who was definitely in the lineage of Lucy Parsons.
I want to talk a little bit about the moments on this record that made me feel like it was recorded last week. Take a listen to this.
They promise education, but really they give you tests and scores. And they predict in prison population by who's scoring the lowest. And usually the lowest scores the poorest, and they look like me. And every day on the evening news, they feed you fear for free. And you so numb, you watch the cops choke out a man like me. Until my voice goes from a shriek to whisper, I can't breathe. And you sit there in house on couch and watch it on TV. The most you give a Twitter rant, call it a tragedy. But truly the travesty, you've been robbed of your empathy. Replaced it with apathy.
Robbed of your empathy and replaced with an apathy has been on my mind. Before we get to that, I mean, that's you were gasping for air, repeating Eric Garner's last words, "I can't breathe." The lyric was about Eric, but it's about George Floyd too now. It's about so many others. Yeah. So what does that say to you? That something you recorded that long ago, again, it feels like it could have been recorded the day before I heard it.
Yeah. The amazing thing about that is I really was running out of air on that line. I put so much passion into the line before it cracked. And I said to Elle, afterwards, because Elle records, he sits and he writes. Like he'll stay 5-6 hours in a corner.
Yeah, you improvise.
Yeah, and mine is exactly as improvisational. If something hits me and it kind of just flows through, or I push myself, I love it when it just hits me because I don't have to do no work then. I'm just standing there and it comes out.
Sure.
But other times I have to sit there and and that line I said, and I'll go back and I'll fix and adjust. And I was like, I got to fix that line. And Elle was like, nah. He was like, nah, that's the perfect emotion on that one. On that line and on the line where I rapped about my mother, where I nearly was in tears. He kept both of those imperfections.
So how does that feel to know that, in rapping about Eric Garner, again, I was thinking about George Floyd. I was thinking about something that could have happened a couple of days before.
Well, yeah, I mean, not even just that. If you look at my grandparents who were born in 1922 and 1932, most lynchings, more lynchings during that period of apartheid for blacks than we can imagine. And they were killed by hanging, by asphyxiation, by a rope around the neck, by literally taking the breath, the ability to breathe from them. The technique that police use that kneel on the backs and necks of people is the same technique that's used in foreign countries. It's the same technique that we were just railing against China using for protesters. It's the exact same thing. So what it makes me feel is that the truth of the state abusing us and killing us and those that feel empowered by the state is nothing new. It's not yesterday. It's not just Eric Garner. It won't just be the next person tomorrow. It is a part of the system. Mm. It is as brutal as a lion attacking a zebra on the Serengeti, but at least a lion attacking a zebra is in the natural course and order of things, because it's not going to kill for pleasure. It's not going to kill for greed. It hunts for the particular need that it needs. What we have in a system that allows for black men to be choked and killed to death, and women, while they yell, scream, and whisper, and their voice falls to a whisper saying, I can't breathe, is we have predators that are on a hunt for human life, and they're empowered by the state. So it doesn't, these things always are. They never have not been for me as a black man in America. And in my lifetime, I would like to see that change, but I'm not always feel that can happen.
Is that why I often see Run the Jewels referred to as running a counterinsurgency? And what that can mean is that it can mean that you're going up against what we've been taught in history schools or in history books, including here in Canada. I mean, Canada is not immune to these conversations around anti-Black racism, around police brutality.
No, absolutely
in particular,
not. Absolutely.
anti-Indigenous
Yes, absolutely.
racism
Absolutely.
and police brutality here. And going up against what television has taught us, does that feel intentional, that sort of iconoclastic nature of the music?
I mean, when you say intentional, do we sit down and say we're going to be counterculture for a generation of people? No. Hip hop is that intuitively. I would bet if you did the percentage of hip hop artists that have said or made socially conscious statements within their music or entire songs, we would far outnumber many other forms of music. And I think that it's because hip hop is born out of social protest. Cool Herc, stealing power from the city of New York to power a sound system that would allow children to have a place to sing, dance, and do art on the street is the most counter thing you can do, because you're galvanizing the powers of the state through electricity, and you're galvanizing the people to be peaceful and fun and celebrate art and love and talent. That is innately hip hop. And I think that we care. We care because KRS-One cared. We care because the Juice Crew cared. We care because, many of the people we looked up to, from Kool Keith, cared. We cared because you're supposed to in hip hop. You're supposed to, we represent society as it is at that moment, and you're rapping then. Rap is not just a romanticized version of what my life wants to be. It is what this shit really is. And I think that Elle and I do that intuitively because I think that that's just the way we learn. And I think that rap will always do that because rap is generally off the concrete or out the mud, figuratively speaking.
Well, then pick for me like a particularly formative album that you listened to when you were younger that taught you about the power of this music, about the power of music being able to be about protest, to be about social change. Is there one particular record more than the others that said that one is really great for me?
I mean, if anybody who listens to my style, you're listening to Ice Cube, Kill at Will. You're listening to Ice Cube, America's Most. You're listening to Death Certificate.
What did you hear?
Death Certificate in particular. Death Certificate was a brave, bold, audacious Black man, a young Black man. It is dangerous to be a Black man now. It was more dangerous when I was my son's age, who's 18, and it was more dangerous when my father was 18, and my grandfather before him. It is, you represent the antithesis of what power in the colonies and countries we live in look like. You represent the ability to overcome at a faster rate than ever given the opportunity to, or in terms of the odds being in your favor. So as a young Black male in America, you were admired for the same reasons you were despised. The same reason they'll tell an athlete, shut up and play ball. He had to be intelligent to learn the plays. He had to be intelligent to maneuver his way through whatever it took to get him academically to be on the team, because you can't play if you can't pass your tests and get good grades. And all of a sudden, when you used to cheering for him and making sports bets on him, or having his jersey make you lots of money, the minute he says something on the behalf of his people, he should shut up, because you fear him for the same reasons you adore him. You adore him because he brings a crowd to the circus for people to make festival of and have fun and make money off. But the moment that he should decide to organize himself and use that same platform of celebrity, you castigate him and shun him. And that's the lightest of measures. The harshest of measures is when you're a 12-year-old boy singing the police at the bus stop. You know what I mean? And the police decide to teach you a lesson that night. That's personal experience, So it's that for me, Death Certificate and Ice Cube surmise that. They show me what a marriage of street knowledge and intellectual knowledge should be. I'm a product of that. I'm a product of a young African-American man from Compton with an audacious rap style that taught me that intelligence is beautiful, militancy is beautiful, marrying one woman and being with her for life is beautiful, making sure your children have a leg up is beautiful, that you can like low riders and you can like high side in the Benz is beautiful. He taught me that intelligence was the fiercest weapon I had, and that my imagination was currency in this market. And I still am thankful for him to this day.
Have you got a chance to say thanks?
Yeah, absolutely. And he gave me an assignment last week. I have to hit him back with some notes.
What do you mean?
He texts me out of nowhere with, here's an assignment. Give me your opinion on these things. So I got to text him back in a day or two.
Do you still kind of pinch yourself there that you're...
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got to thank his brother Ron, who's his right-hand man, and Tony Draper, who also got me connected to Cube for one of the first features that he's ever given me. Tony Draper's the founder of Suave House, who founded, of course, 8 Ball and MJG, Tila, Crime Boss, such other notables out of the South.
I imagine if your 12-year-old self knew that you would be texting with Ice Cube. I mean,
Hey, man, there are times where I literally just wish I could go back and just sit on the bed next to that kid like, hey, man, you should dream bigger because all this shit you're saying is going to work out. You should maybe say, I want to be a trillionaire. Everything you're saying, kid, is happening. Trust me,
If you're just joining us, this is Q. I'm Tom Power. I'm speaking with Killer Mike of Run the Jewels about their new record, RTJ4. It has been pointed out that each of your major releases as a group since 2013 have coincided with these major flashpoints in American history, whether it's the murder of Trayvon Martin, the protests in Ferguson, the election of President Donald Trump. Is that something that you guys picked up on?
No, we can't plan that.
Not that you planned it, but you recognized that.
We recognized it. We certainly did. That's when we recognized we're in another dimension too. There's another dimension where Run the Jewels is just playing. They're happy as shit. They're playing 300 to 500 people rooms. They're doing 100 shows a year just to make it, and they're heralded as one of the most slept on groups ever. But in this dimension, it amazes us, and we're just thankful and gracious.
But it must be a different sort of gratitude. I mean, I hope you know how I don't mean that. I don't mean that you're no. You know what I mean, that you're thankful for any of these things that happen. But it is sad that this music is so relevant in many ways.
It's not, but that's not the only music we make.
No, of course, and we've talked about that earlier.
Yeah, they're just the records that we make that are like that. As I said, these conditions are always. And it's everybody take 5 seconds to think about that. The conditions that we rap about that resonate with people around pain and suffering and social disorder and how dystopian the state is becoming is always. Now, we have stuff to distract us from it sometimes. We have regular life, we have jobs, we have sports and entertainment. But there are times where the moment is so big that it's always is present to everyone at the same time. This is always happening. It has never stopped, and it won't stop until we decide it stops and we organize it in an effective way against it. But I feel like less about our timing is on point that coincides with these particular events as people are willing to be in tuned at that time. That's to me the amazing part, that we are the people that people choose to be in tune to. Elle and I are black and white. We didn't plan to make a rap group to take advantage of that. We built a pure friendship around rap, and we just loved the shit out of each other. We love each other like brothers. We didn't know in Ferguson that would mean something. We didn't understand, as I stood on that bus and I told him and my wife, I don't want to do this tonight. I don't want to rap tonight. I don't even want to be in St. Louis next to Ferguson. I don't want to be here. And my wife saying, you have to go out. And Elle's like, I'm not going to force you to go out and say anything. But my wife's like, you have to. You have a responsibility to, and me getting the chance to go on that stage and say that brought people who look like me and Elle together at a time where the moment was ripping them apart. I think that's less about us even knowing what we're doing when we're making a record and more about the universe saying that this friendship, this music, this relationship is bigger than you all know. And here, let me show you. And all you have to do is step into the moment with the love, care, and confidence that you do stepping into making these records. You've
talked about participating in protests and movements and uprisings, back in 1992, all the way back to there.
Yeah.
What feels different, or does anything feel different between then and now?
Yeah, it's a tapestry now. In the 90s, you would have my friend Kevin, who was an organizer with me. Kevin was an amazing kid. His from a Christian family. He was gay. So it was at the time, it just wasn't a good fit. Kevin ended up staying at a group home, but he was an amazing organizer. He was an amazing human being. But Kevin would be organizing on behalf of kids with us. We'd all organize together. But if Kevin was organizing on the behalf of gay kids, he'd go here and organize.
Mm-hmm.
If Sarah or Lisa Farrakhan were organizing on the behalf of white women, they'd go here and organize. I organized on the behalf of Black boys with Black Teens for Advancement. That's what brought me from here. Now, like the organization we were all a part of, which was called Kids for Change then, we were mirrored certain groups like Rising Youth for Social Equality out in California that mirrored the Brazilian youth movement that got a youth constitution for kids in Brazil. We mirrored that, but now what I see in the streets is that tapestry that I had as a teenager. This is, 25 years ago, you look at me, late teens, early 20s, I have a tapestry of people that wasn't common. Like now you look and there's a tapestry of people together. Mm-hmm. The Amish were out protesting.
Mm-hmm.
The Amish. Mm-hmm. When I saw that, I'm like, first of all, how did they get the news? Who has the phone? I mean,
how long did someone have to bike?
Exactly. How long did the horse and carriage have to get through there? But I was hope-filled and full of joy when seeing that, because it means that the good news is spread, that it's time for all of us to link up, realize we have the same masters, and overthrow a system that would divide us.
I was hoping, if you have the time, you could maybe help Canadians understand something, because you gave this really brilliant speech in the early days of these uprisings with the mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, who we talked about earlier, and the artist T.I. Just take a listen to this for a second.
I'm duty bound to be here to simply say that it is your duty not to burn your own house down for anger with an enemy. It is your duty to fortify your own house so that you may be a house of refuge in times of organization. And now is the time to plot, plan, strategize, organize. So my question for us on the other side of this camera is, after it burns, will we be left with charred, or will we rise like a phoenix out of the ashes that Atlanta has always done?
So that's the line I want to talk about, that Atlanta has always done, because this was one of the watershed moments of the spring and summer. You talked about the importance of mobilization and organization. You positioned Atlanta as an enclave of Black success. And to a Canadian, can you talk to me a little bit about this speech, but about the city of Atlanta in the broader context of all of this? Okay.
So Atlanta, for those of you all, get your pens out. W.E.B. Du Bois, who's credited with being a Black intellectual of the 10%, who believed in a talented 10th, that 10% of the higher educated, or what would be considered the Black bourgeoisie, had the opportunity to guide us into better. It's a stereotype he's been branded. Then you have Booker T. Washington, who was a pull yourself up by your bootstraps, also an intellectual, but a tradesman, and founder of Tuskegee University. My family is from Tuskegee, and that's a very prestigious college amongst the historically Black colleges and universities. They were often pitted against one another in terms of philosophically, although I believe that a little bit of both forms the best human being. They had two Atlanta conferences. All right, so much like the Niagara Conference that was up in Niagara Falls, which Blacks self-organized, I think it may have been the NAACP up there. Atlanta has always been, for Black America, a place of organization. So I'm talking over 100 years ago. There were two Atlanta conferences that discussed what was going to be relevant in Black America and the Pan-African diaspora. Everything from Haiti to Africa to Brazil in its relation to Blacks here in America. Atlanta has been that in the 20s and 30s. It has been that in the 40s and 50s. It has been that in the 60s and 70s. The person who was the unofficial Black mayor of Atlanta during, I think, the 20s and 30s, or 30s and 40s is John Wesley Dobbs. He's the grandfather to Atlanta's first Black mayor, Maynard Jackson. Maynard Jackson allowed for 30% of city contracts to go to Black or minority businesses. That built the true Black middle class. They gentrified an area called the Collier Heights. The Collier Heights was the home of mixed income Black kids. I represent one of those children that were from the working class. I got a chance to go to better schools that were named for Black people, like Frederick Douglass. If it had not been for this infrastructure of true Black political, social, economic, and political power all at one place, you do not get the products of one neighborhood like Killer Mike, T.I., Keisha Lance Bottoms, the Russell family, the McKinney family. All these are just regular working class Black people that have found their way up the economic and social change through connections, through hard work, through networking, through education, through self-reliance, through group and community economics. This doesn't happen successfully like it happens in Atlanta and other cities. In other cities we've had that have been chocolate cities that have been great, many have fallen and many are on the rebound, including, and I'm happy to see cities like Detroit on the rebound. I'm happy to see cities like Houston come up. I'm happy to see cities like DC start to rebound in terms of making sure poor and working class people can still be there. But the difference is in Atlanta, it has been for over 100 years. Much like Citizens Trust Bank has had a 100-year legacy of good banking, Atlanta has had 100 years. Now we can do better. There's still poverty here. There's still crime. Just like in America with the hugest amount of money, we have one of the greatest wealth disparities and we got to fix that. But if you're Black and you're from anywhere in the world, there's probably no greater place to have instant opportunity in terms of being in America than coming to Atlanta, Georgia. So
after you gave that speech and you spoke about Atlanta, it was shared online by virtually everybody. Were you ready? Were you ready for that sort of virality?
I wasn't ready for the speech. I was with the Bankhead Seafood Truck where I just left, planning and strategizing, organizing ways to make more money. T.I. and I own a restaurant together called Bankhead Seafood. It's a 50-year-old restaurant on the west side of the neighborhood that we're from. It was owned by Miss Helen Harden. We bought the restaurant, the building, the land, the recipes from her, and we said we're going to continue this tradition, and we're going to make sure that her tradition never dies. We partnered with the developer Noel Khalil, who's a Black man out of the Herman Russell School, who's also a Black man who owned a construction company, development company. So we had all this around us. We started as I was hanging out with the truck, taking Noriega out, drinking Moet and Hennessy and smoking joints. And all of a sudden, Tip comes up and says, hey, I got a request to go speak to try to make sure that the protesters are going to get out safely and to let them know, let's roll the peaceful part back because if trouble starts, we don't want them to get hurt by the police. And I'm like, shit, absolutely not. I'm not going.
No.
And you know, for those who read my GQ article, the Tip is actually quoted. I didn't think he'd say this, but at one point I was just loud, like it's not our job. And after about an hour, he whittled me down, and I followed him over there, and we go. And I had no plans on talking, but I literally saw our mayor in the back, you know, asserting herself. You know, I won't say yelling, but asserting herself that the police were not going to go straight in and just hurt people. And I saw the police stand down, and I saw her do a great job. And next thing you know, Tip is at the podium, and I go speak. And then when I come out, the policemen were like, "Thank you," because that's not what we wanted to do. Going in there, the mayor was passionate in her speech, and I just was thankful that she had the wherewithal and Black mothered them about her constituency to be concerned in that moment. And I was angry. I was mad. I didn't want to be there, but I'm glad that the universe called for me to be there because whatever was said was needed at that moment, and I appreciate the people that heard it.
Before we go, and we only got about a minute left with you, I feel like, you know, looking to the future, Run the Jewels is made up of rappers in their 40s in a game that is largely dominated by young men. And this is a conversation I'm about to have in a couple of minutes. But do you feel like you have a different relationship with your success, with Run the Jewels' success, because it happened later?
Yeah, my ego didn't get to take the whole ride with me. You know, I have the rapper ego of I want to show up and rap my ass off. But the ego of I need to be the most important person in the room. I need to be the most important person on the song. My word should be most important. It's gone. Ella and I met each other at 35 years old. Ella and I had gotten past the point of needing empty affirmation, and we just wanted to make the dopest shit possible. That's it. Our friendship is based on that. We're forever 15 because of that friendship. You know, we're forever 15. So Bun B is older than me, and Bun B doesn't see himself as older than me. Bun B's like, when it's time to get on the track, you better bring what you got, Mike, because I'm bringing what I got. And so when I see 5 players on the basketball court on either side, I'm not thinking age. I'm thinking who's going to get that shot off. So for us, what I was able to get rid of was my need to be a star. And I traded that for a reality of being one half of what I feel is the greatest rap group ever. And that means that my weaknesses are acknowledged and they're made stronger by my partner. And I do the same for him. So my understanding of teamwork being what Michael is versus it's just me. You know what I mean? It's not me, it is we, it is us. We are balanced. We are two friends on this weird, wild, crazy journey together where we're not supposed to be here. It should never have worked, and yet it's working and getting bigger. And that's what we're going to keep doing until we march into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame smelling like marijuana, dressed in black denim at night.
Kevin, Mike, nice to talk to you.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you, brother.